Oklahoma's school board has voted to approve what could become the nation's first publicly funded religious school. The application came from the Catholic Archdiocese of Oklahoma. It aims to create an online public charter school for students across the state from kindergarten through 12th grade. It would be funded by taxpayer dollars. And Oklahoma's Attorney General warns it's unconstitutional and opens the state to potential litigation.
Well, it does certainly open the state to potential litigation because we do live in a society that is, governed by a constitution that separates church and state. The idea of public money pouring into a religious institution, in this case, a religious Catholic school, seems to go against those constitutional protections. But nonetheless, the Supreme Court, considering how conservative it is at the moment, is very unlikely to strike this down. That is my speculation. But before we get to the Supreme Court, why don't we talk a little bit about this school in Oklahoma? So it's called the St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual School, and I think its purpose is pretty clear here. The Catholic Archdiocese of Oklahoma and the Diocese of Tulsa wrote in their application to form the school the following. So they wrote that the Catholic school participants in the evangelizing mission of the church and is the privileged environment in which Christian education is carried out. It is a Christian school. It is a religious school, I should say. The school was approved by a 3-2 vote on Monday of this week, thanks to some last-minute political maneuvering, which you're about to learn about. A similar application by the school was rejected unanimously in April. The revised and resubmitted application was approved on Monday after the Oklahoma House Speaker, Charles McCall, a Republican, appointed a new board member to replace a previous one at the last minute on Friday. Oklahoma's Republican Attorney General spoke out against the board's vote, saying that the approval of any publicly funded religious school is contrary to Oklahoma law and not in the best interest of taxpayers. It's extremely disappointing that board members violated their oath in order to fund religious schools with our tax dollars. In doing so, these members have exposed themselves and the state to potential legal action. So I just want to ask the state of Oklahoma, those who are proponents of what's transpiring here, if they would be okay with taxpayer money being funneled to a religious Muslim school. Would they? I would venture to say that they would find that problematic. Or a satanic school. I'd venture to say they would find that problematic. I could be wrong, but what do you think, John?
You can already go to satanic school. It's in Target every day. Kidding. Yeah, so that's I think that's the automatic reaction that I had, that I think most people have. But what I think it misses is that you are assuming that they think this should be equitable. They don't. They think we win, they lose. It's obviously unconstitutional, it's explicitly unconstitutional, it's intentionally unconstitutional. They know, like a lot of these abortion laws that are being passed, that it obviously is unconstitutional. They are wagering that we've already won the Supreme Court. Screw law, screw precedent, screw the Constitution. We can do whatever we want. And all this stuff about, well, then you'll have Muslim schools and you'll have Hindu schools and you'll have Jain schools and you'll have Jewish schools. No, you won't, because they'll be in charge and they will stop that from happening. They will elevate themselves to a position of superiority. The separation of church and state has been subverted in such an amazing way in that the churches don't have to pay taxes, but the tax dollars go to the religious schools.
That's right, yeah.
It's not separate, it's literally above. Because you benefit from the money that you don't have to contribute. All of this, again, like I like pointing out the hypocrisy and the inconsistency, because we as lefties or libs or progressives, whatever you want to say, we believe that hypocrisy is bad and consistency is good, but they don't believe that. They believe that winning is good and losing is bad. They don't care if Christian schools are allowed, but Muslim schools aren't, because Christians are good and Muslims are bad, according to them.
By the way, let me just be absolutely clear here. I don't want taxpayer money funneled to any religious school. I don't care if it's a Christian school, Jewish school, Muslim school, satanic school. It doesn't matter. I want none of.
Jedi Academy, I'd be fine with.
We have a separation of church and state. This sets a devastating precedent, and that's what I'm also curious about, right? Because if this gets litigated all the way to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court decides, no, we're gonna protect this. We're going to decide that this is totally fine, that funneling taxpayer money to a religious institution, totally fine. Okay, but precedent does matter. So if someone decides to push for the funding of a school that believes in the Muslim doctrine, right? And that gets litigated to the Supreme Court, what do? Do they uphold it?
They'll say that that's not consistent with the social religious makeup of the area, and it's the province of each government to reflect the religious makeup of its whatever. They'll make up literally whatever they want. Again, they're not actually special or logical. They're like the Supreme Court is full of drunks and religious radicals. That's all it is. Sexual assaulters and the most corrupt people in the country. They're not special, they're not awesome. They're politicians who didn't have to run for election. That's all they are.
So let's talk a little bit about why John is onto something, because the Supreme Court has been dismantling to some extent, the secular education system in the country. So let's talk a little bit about that. So in a 2017 case, for instance, the court ruled that a church-run preschool in Missouri was entitled to a state grant to resurface its playground. 3 years later, the court ruled that Montana could not bar recipients of the state's private school voucher program from using them at religious schools. And last year, the court said that a Maine voucher program that sent rural students to private high schools in communities that had no public ones had to be open to religious schools. Look, that very last part, I think, is way more complicated. If you're talking about students in rural parts of the country that don't have access to public schools, I can understand the reasoning behind it, right? Like the reasoning of allowing for some funding to go to religious schools in those rural areas. But how about we build more public schools so public money isn't going toward private institutions? But anyway, there's more. So according to Public Notice, it's not much of a stretch to imagine SCOTUS holding that the First Amendment requires public tax dollars to go to public school because a prohibition on doing so, quote, burdens not only religious schools, but the families whose children attend or hope to attend them. We have long recognized the rights of parents to direct the religious upbringing of their children. But do that in your homes. You don't do that in schools, right? Unless it's a private school that requires privately funded tuition, not public funds.
Obviously. But wouldn't it be nice if the religion of all of the conservatives on that court was the one that got the bucks? What about that legal doctrine? I get your money.
Everything that makes this country great is slowly but surely being dismantled. We hear a lot from the right wing about the need to uphold our freedoms, our liberties. Religious liberty happens to be one of those things. Religious liberty doesn't just mean that Christians get to practice their religion without any interference. Religious liberty means the government shouldn't fund or promote any particular religion or force religion upon us. And the fact that these principles, these elements of our constitutional rights are being eroded thanks to agenda-driven policymakers and federal judges, and in this case, Supreme Court justices, is so incredibly depressing. We need to actually value freedom, and that means freedom from religion and the freedom to practice whatever religion you like, but you don't get public dollars funneled to your organization as a result of that. You just don't.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.